I'd probably call himself it in the mirror. You're not sausage. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Right.
That's very good, by the way. You have to say that Anthony Joshua, if he becomes a 3-time world heavyweight champion, will go down as an all-time great. And you go, I actually like
got all
this
the
fight a lot.
backstory. Who's going to win?
I was getting there.
I just don't think they'd put him in against Harlem Eubank. And
I'm not interested in the story. Just give me his wins the fight.
Welcome to episode 68 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. I'm back, I'm rested, I'm recuperated, I've recovered from the nonsense I listened to you and Johnny Nelson talking about last week. No, it was brilliant.
That was a good show, to be fair.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. Nice to be back, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Simon. And you're looking very healthy as well.
Yes, Spain, 10 days.
Right.
Which is where the Pimpernel is now, isn't it? Pat, the ever-present producer, who's never present.
He is.
Yeah. In Spain, probably some Spanish prison cell where he belongs for impersonating a producer. Right? Yeah, listen, anyway, let's get on with this show.
Yeah.
Look, I noticed that Anthony Joshua made an appearance on Jonathan Ross. I'm always sort of reticent when he does these things, when he appears on Graham Norton and shows of that nature, because I think it can be distracting for him. But listen, he's had a successful year. He's rebuilt himself. So he's in the media glare again, and he's the poster boy again. But he made some observations about the length and breadth of his career and how much longer he was going to go on for. And he talked about retirement. And he's mentioned this before, slightly more coded.
Yeah.
But this time he mentioned it specifically, didn't he? Do you believe him? In 2 years' time, he's going to pack in?
Yeah, I think that Anthony Joshua always said, even when he was younger, when he first turned professional, he always said that he wanted to retire at 35. He is now 35.
Yeah.
And he says he feels that he's got a couple of years left. I think that he feels that there's more to achieve. Look, if he retired tomorrow, two-time world heavyweight champion, you go, you've done it. But he feels that there's more there. I think that he feels that the change in decision and now saying he wants another couple of years is, if you look at the landscape and the time frames and whatnot, you go, right, it sort of makes sense. We look at September, he possibly gets, in September, Wembley Stadium, the winner of Hrgovic versus Dubois for the IBF title, wins that title. I don't know what happens with the other titles once that undisputed happens. I know the IBF becomes vacated. Not sure what happens with the other titles, but we could possibly see then, if Anthony Joshua picks that title up, the winner of Fury Usyk, depending on how that goes in the rematch clause or whatever, he could possibly get the winner of that. And I think that that's what he's looking at, and that's why he's giving himself 24 months. I think once he's achieved what he wants to achieve, 3-time world heavyweight champion, and possibly undisputed, I think that's the goal.
Yeah, I think it's steeped in common sense.
Yeah.
Whether it manifests itself in those exact timelines, or whether he stays around longer, you begin to question why. If you can achieve all the things that he will probably have earmarked in the next 2 years. First of all, he's had a year where he's rebuilt himself. He's had 4 fights in that year. He's put himself back into a position. You've got a new game in town, which is the Saudis and the economic power that goes with that. So it would be madness for him to be disappearing into the ether economically, or what was the point of the last year of rebuilding himself? The timelines about when fights can be made are always going to play a part. So I don't think it's an unreasonable suggestion from him. I think fighters often don't know when to leave. Lennox Lewis did it perfectly.
Yeah, well, he's always suggested, and Lennox Lewis is a great example of that. But Anthony Joshua has always suggested, he said, listen, I will not be in this game too long. You see, he sees the damaging effects of some fighters.
He doesn't need to be, does he?
That's what I'm saying.
He's made himself economically secure. He's made huge amounts of money. Probably the highest paid British boxer that has ever existed. He's up there in a sort of the echelons of the finances that Mike Tyson was getting back in the day. So when you look at things, and when I was away, I'm writing a book, and one of the things I'm writing about is about dementia in sport, and it's undeniable that boxing has a problem coming down the line. So Anthony Joshua, looking at the economic returns he's got from the sport, looking at the achievements, looking at a 2-year cycle, and getting out with everything together as much as it can be, himself intact, his finances very well secured, his well-being, his legacy, and all those things that may become important to him further down the line. I think it's just bloody common sense.
Absolutely. Listen, he's always been a smart kid anyway, and I think that he's never wanted to stay in the game too long. He's got to this stage now, like you say, the last year has been a rebuilding process. I think had that year not gone as well as it would have, he may have considered retirement.
Might be a different discussion.
But he's done what he's done. He's put himself right back in the mix. And now he's thinking, I want the undisputed. I want that. I know he wants to fight with Tyson Fury. He probably wants that third fight with Alexander Usyk.
Yeah.
You know, because he wants to right the wrongs of the first two.
I mean, all that can change, of course, because if we are talking in the way that my mate Eddie Hearn, did you hear what he said about me the other day?
No, go on.
Bloody cheek. It was on Piers Morgan's show.
Oh, really?
And they asked him and his dad who was the biggest that they've met.
I saw it on. I think I saw it on Instagram or Twitter.
I mean,
I saw a clip.
All he had to do was put a mirror in front of himself. He didn't need to bring me into the conversation, did he? For Christ's sakes. But listen, I don't care being facetious about it. But the point I'm making is that Eddie's talking about potentially Hrgovic being the fight, right? And for a world title. Of course, if Anthony were to lose that fight, I think the direction of travel may change.
I think if he loses at any stage of his career now, that would probably spell the end. Well, I don't think there will be a rebuilding process again. I think this is like the last roll of the dice to achieve.
Unless it's a controversial
legacy,
decision.
modern eras and stuff like that. I think that's what. Look, he's financially secure now.
This is about money, Spence.
No, he's financially secure, Simon.
Spence, this is about money.
Listen, trust me though. He's well, you know that anyway.
Spencer, we've all made a lot of money.
Yeah,
and we've all been financially secure at some times.
Talk for yourself,
I had 100 million quid. I bought a bloody football club. Depends what you do with your money, right? And financial security, I gave it to some very deserving footballers. Silly me, I should have given it to some deserving boxers. But if you've got the ridiculousness of what's being on offer now.
Yeah.
So the scale and quantum increases the appetite.
Absolutely.
I'm not suggesting he's not pricing in the idea that I can make sure that when I leave this industry, 3-time heavyweight champion of the world, and I deal with Tyson Fury. And if he does that, then he'll go out to a fanfare.
Yeah.
And in the same way that some might argue now that Anthony Joshua has reclaimed boxing because by the very nature of his profile now after the Ngannou fights, because of the battle that was going on, has MMA got itself into a situation where it's the more prevalent combat sport, and is heavyweight boxing a laughing stock when the so-called lineal, well not so-called, he is the lineal champion, Tyson Fury, but arguably the greatest heavyweight around gets almost humbled by Ngannou, and along rides in Anthony Joshua and corrects that thought process. So everything has arrived at a perfect time for him.
Restored the faith in boxing, really. In many
that's
ways.
what we said the other day, and he deserves to be given all the praise that he should be given for that. He talked also in that Jonathan Ross interview about Tyson Fury, that he'll use Tyson Fury's words as fuel.
Yeah.
So basically, what's Tyson Fury called him? I called him a flat track bully once, right? But he calls him a bodybuilder. He calls him a variety of different things. A dosser. Well, he calls everybody a dosser.
Yeah.
You know, he probably calls himself a dosser.
Sausage. Well, that was the word.
Well, he calls everyone a sausage as well, doesn't he?
All right,
we're all in that gang. He probably calls himself it in the mirror. You're not a sausage. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Right?
That's very good, by the way. Very good.
But what do you? I mean, I think I know what he means, which is the motivation, and I'm going to turn this on its head.
Yeah.
When he says those things, what do you think is going through his mind? Why does he say those things?
Well, because a boxer needs something to fuel off. A boxer needs something to feed the fire, really, to get yourself motivated and that's exactly what he's talking about. He's saying, right, listen, he'll use that and he'll feed off it, as opposed to turning it into a negative thing. He'll feed off it, and I think that's exactly where he's coming from. He's a smart kid, Anthony Joshua. He knows what he's doing, and I think that right now he's in the best place he's probably ever been, as in mentally, phically, and
he knows himself, doesn't he?
He knows himself,
exactly.
Overcome
right. Adversity.
Yeah.
I still want the question asked and answered, because we have yet to see. And I think you've said to me, and others have said to me, it's never been about whether Anthony Joshua can take a punch. It's whether he's prepared to go to the space and place that he has to be able to overcome that adversity. So people say, because I always say, well, he's yet to take a shot. Let's take a shot in his 4 fights. Franklin, and Helenius and Otto Wallin and Ngannou, they didn't really test him in that respect. And we still got that question to be asked and answered. But you don't think that's a question that needs to be answered. You think the main question was, does he have the drive? Does he have the
self-belief
to overcome?
Yeah.
And you think those questions have been absolutely answered?
Absolutely. Well, I'm very, very confident on that.
Do you think? I mean, we've got, has the Hrgović-Dubois fight been made? It has, hasn't it?
The Hrgović-Dubois has been made, and it will be for the vacant IBF title. That is going on June the 1st.
So that is for the vacant IBF title?
IBF title.
Yes, it was, because last time we discussed that before I went away, it was indeed that. So Daniel Dubois, I mean, whatever you may say about criticisms of promoters, I mean, Frank got him a shot for the WBA.
Yeah.
They had all the challenges after that situation where they lodged an appeal and expected the WBA to come in and give him a rematch.
Yeah.
He's now got him a fight for the IBF belt.
Yeah.
So Daniel Dubois can't complain about his promoter, can he?
Absolutely.
I mean, he's worked the oracle there, Frank.
I think that what Frank has done there is genius, really. I mean, he's sort of like, Daniel Dubois, he sort of built him up. Yeah. And then when he got knocked down, he picked him back up again and he's put him into this position. I mean, Dubois has done well doing the last fight against Miller. It was a good performance, put himself back in the mix. But to get himself an IBF title shot is great. I mean, respect to Frank Warren for that.
I tell you what, though, it does make the question abound. If Dubois were to beat Hrgović, which is entirely plausible,
yeah, absolutely,
he's got the toolkit to do it.
Absolutely.
Would Anthony Joshua want to fight Daniel Dubois for a strap?
At Wembley, huge fight.
Would he?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm not questioning the courage. I'm questioning the risk reward of a British fighter that's not Tyson Fury, that won't pay as much as Tyson Fury fight pays. Because if Anthony goes in against Daniel Dubois and loses to Dubois, and he's not only losing the opportunity to win a world title, he's losing to a British fighter.
I understand that, legacies and all that.
There's
absolutely,
real jeopardy there,
absolutely. But 100%, 110%. That's like, it doesn't matter who's there. I think September, Wembley Stadium, Anthony Joshua fighting for that IBF title. I think that it doesn't matter if it's Dubois or Hrgović, Joshua goes for it.
Closing off the subject of Anthony, if he completes the trilogy of getting 3 heavyweight championships, he joins a very unique company.
Yeah.
And very unique in terms of, from a British fighting point of view. Where do you think it will leave him in the history books? I mean, the history books, I mean, in heavyweight boxing, I think it leaves him unassailable in British boxing. Yeah. Because we won't have had a heavyweight champion. Lennox Lewis, obviously,
Lennox Lewis was Lennox Lewis was two-time world heavyweight champion.
But we won't have had a 3-time heavyweight champion.
Listen, I think when you're looking at 3-time world heavyweight champions, you're talking about Muhammad Ali. 4-time world heavyweight champion was Evander Holyfield. Mm-hmm. He won it against Buster Douglas, didn't he? Then Michael Moorer, then he had the Riddick Bowe fight, then Mike Tyson. Mm-hmm. So, you're talking about, and I think that's it. You've got Muhammad Ali 3 times, and Evander Holyfield, who's a very elite club. And forget who he's won the titles from and how he's done it and everything else. I think that you have to say that Anthony Joshua, if he becomes a 3-time world heavyweight champion, will go down as an all-time great.
Do you think he'll be celebrated by the British boxing public the way he should do? I've always had this thing about, I've said it to various people around him, I didn't like the speech that he gave in Hyde Park or wherever it was about Black Lives Matter, and I think that in some respects compromised certain people's views of him, and when I've been told the reasons why he did that. I also felt that he was a little bit of a flat track bully, that when it got put on him he couldn't cope with it. But I've kind of adjusted my attitude a little bit. I've spoken to some, not just because I'm being a sycophant, but because I can look at things a bit more. If you don't change your mind every now and again when you've got new information, then you're an idiot, right? Yeah. So I would look at him in the next couple of years, if he handles himself the way he's been handling himself recently, and he goes and wins fights like Dubois or Hrgović, and even if he lost to Tyson Fury, if he ends up fighting Fury, or if he ended up fighting Usyk again and he lost again, I would probably sat here and say, that was some career. Absolutely. And that was you've done yourself a massive amount of credit. You probably lifted a lot of boxing alongside you. And I think he should be rewarded and recognised with that kind of generosity of thinking, rather than, well, he didn't do this, or he didn't do that, or he lost to him, because let's not forget, Muhammad Ali lost to quite a few
absolutely. Fighters. And I think if you look at Anthony Joshua and his journey and where he come from to where he's got to, and if he does complete that, winning the world heavyweight title 3 times, and you go, it's not just his boxing achievements. It's like you, and you're right there, you highlighted it there, Simon. You go, look, he's inspired millions of kids from his journey and where he come from to where he got to and how he done that, like how he dragged himself out from one world into another world, walked into a boxing gym and transformed his life. That is a very inspirational story. So you go with the story and becoming a three-time world heavyweight champion, you go, that is like, he's got to go down as one of the all-time heavyweight greats. You got to accept that.
Absolutely. And I think arguable as a British one. And also when you see the expectation, and listen, it goes with the territory. You shouldn't apologise for expectation. You get all the rewards, take some of the downsides. And I'm not so sure people in society too often are prepared to take downsides. Yeah. But I remember watching the fight, when he fought Franklin, and you watch the temperature in the room go up with people's expectation. And it's a difficult one because most of the time, very few people can meet the expectation of others because it will keep on rising and rising. And the moment you go, well, he didn't knock him out, so that's a problem. And I think there's an element of, I feel a little bit of empathy towards him.
He's a victim of his own success, Anthony Joshua.
But listen, if you said to Anthony Joshua after 2012, this is what's going to happen in your life. You're probably going to walk out of sport with hundreds of millions of pounds, with having had a career that's taken you all over the place. You've made relationships with very influential people. You're now set up and those around you for the rest of your life, and you've won the heavyweight championship of the world twice or three times. But few people are going to say a few things that you don't like. Well, and a few people are going to pull you up on a few losses. He'd have said, you know what, I'll have that every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. You just, if you retire tomorrow and you look at the journey in British and Commonwealth champion, it's a throw in there as well. You just go, no, it's been a hell of a ride. It really has, and there's more to come.
Now, I want to be asked. I want to be able to vent and to have my observations about the Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke fight. I want to be asked. I want you to show the prerequisite amount of interest in my opinion on this fight.
Do you know what?
Because I got to miss it last week. I watched the fight. Of course, I watched the fight.
I'm really interested in getting your opinion, so I will ask you. You know what you thought of the fight.
Why are you sniggering when you say that?
Because
say it with a straight face. Say it. I really want to hear your opinion. Means a load to me.
I do want to hear it, but I'm a little bit nervous about what you're going to tell me. And that's what I'm saying, because I'm hoping you don't put a downer on what I saw as an unbelievable, one of the all-time best British heavyweight title fights.
How can you?
Out there.
I mean, technically you can make arguments.
So Simon, what did you think of the fight?
Well, the irony of it is I was over there writing yet another bestseller. Right? Did I tell you I was writing a book?
No.
Have I mentioned that?
Am I in it?
No.
Well, I'm not interested.
No,
Carry on.
No. Yeah, that's what you'll do. Go to the back page of mine. I'm not reading that. But the irony is I'm sitting with a friend of mine I'm collaborating on, and the football was on, right? And he's like, you watch the football, you kind of flick on your phone, you don't pay much attention to it. Boxing comes on, boom, phone goes down, not talking to anybody, watching the boxing, studying it. Because I am very interested, as you know. I thought there was a series of great fights, culminating in the feature event. I think both of the boys did themselves massive credit. I think it was what everyone else thinks it was an absolute barn burner, where you cannot see, more specifically, the absolute commitment, some might say brutality, sort of look away moments in the fight. You know, obviously with Fabio constantly getting his nose opened up after every single round, going back to an injury that he did in a few fights previous. I do think, and it's not me defending my observation that I thought Fabio would win, I do think he nicked that fight. I thought Frazer started brilliantly. I thought he gave something Fabio to think about that Fabio didn't think he was going to have to think about. I think they both dug down in their gum shield. I think they were both a credit to themselves. I'm comfortable with the draw, irrespective of the fact that I think that Fabio maybe could have nicked it by a round. But I think it was a brilliant advertisement for them both.
Do you think that
what it's done to them was taken 2 years off their life? I think,
absolutely.
Their boxing lives.
It was a brutal fight. You know, both guys. You know what they're going through. Like, it was incredible when they both blew a gasket by round 4 or 5, and they just kept going. It was like real seesaw of action, one way and the other. And I mean, it was gladiatorial what they done in there. I think that
and
Simon,
then some.
Simon, another question I want to ask you: what a stroke of genius by Ben Shalom, getting like postponing the fight originally when it was first done, or pulling him out of the purse bids and taking the Marius Wack fight. And the reason I tell you this, let me tell you why this, because What happened with Frazer Clarke going into the Marius Wack fight was not the fight itself, because you look at the fight and you go, well, it was a 10-round ball. So what would he have taken from that? I tell you what he would have taken from it. He recognises that he was never nearly fit enough to compete in a 12-round fight at that level.
So no doubt.
After that fight, he's gone back to the brink, and that's what got him through the thing. Had the fight happened before the 10-rounder, he would have been stopped.
No doubt.
Clarke,
No doubt.
So that was genius, letting him go in that 10-rounder.
I don't know if it was genius or not. I mean, the scenario of Ben putting himself in an invidious position where he pulls out of a purse bid on a called fight. It's probably not the wisest strategy to have got himself involved in, because he gets himself in a situation where people can take the piss out of him and say some of the things that they've said. But for his fighter, Frazer Clarke wasn't ready to fight Fabio Wardley a year ago. And so if you're talking about the must-have fights, if you're running your business the way that other people want you to run it, so if you're Ben and you do what Eddie Hearn wants you to do, or if you're Eddie Hearn, you do what Ben Shalom wants to do, then perhaps you're not running your business the way you should, and perhaps you're not looking after the fighters. I don't think Ben can be given all the credit for the scale of the event that it became.
No, absolutely not. But I just think that 10-rounder prepared Frazer and put him, because when he got into those penultimate rounds, 9, 10, 11, 12, when he got into those rounds, you looked at it and you go, had he not done that 10-rounder, realised he was not in shape for this sort of level.
Even another fight against Dave Allen gives him more experience.
Yeah, but I think he's just getting into those later rounds.
Well, of course it is.
So he recognises, listen, I'm not in shape.
But it's common sense, right? Like the argument is raging now about, I dare you to put Adam Azim in with Dalton Smith, right? Well, why? Because he's the European champion, it's been called. I get it, but I don't think that this is a fight that my guy needs to take right now. So I want to structure it in such a way, we'll take Dalton Smith, but we'll take him when we're ready. So you've got to vacate. Okay, we vacated if that's what we're going to do. And people can call it tousery, or they can call it clever handling of your fighter. Because if you think there's a risk profile which is not right for your fighter, I know what the fight public wants. I know what you want sometimes, which is we want to see the best against the best. Right? But really what we want to see is the best version of the best against the best. And I just think that the Adam Azim argument is the same as the Frazer Clarke argument, is it's going to happen. No one's going to duck one another, but it's not going to happen when it suits one person better than the other. It's
a promoter's duty of care to look after the fighter and put him in for when he thinks it is. And obviously the teams didn't feel that it was a fight. Of course I want to see that by him and Dalton Smith, because it is a sensational fight. But of course Eddie Hearn and Dalton Smith want to fight now, because this kid's getting better, and he will improve over time. So I understand both sides of it. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I've jumped onto that subject, but again, going back to the Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke fight, yes, there was everything in it, and it was a challenge to watch it, because everyone was leaving everything in the ring. And if you want a slugfest, you got one. If you wanted technical boxing, you watched a little bit more from Frazer, because you didn't see a lot of that from Fabio. You just saw power and determination. And
listen, 90% of the viewing public want a slugfest. That's what they watch. They're casual fans.
You want to see knockouts.
Boxing is the pinnacle of sport, really, and you want to see the guys putting
I get it.
I mean, what they were going to, what they were leaving in there. I'm thinking, even when the 12th, when the bell went for the 12th and final round, I'm looking at them thinking, someone's going to get taken out here. Someone's going to go, because they had literally nothing left.
No, absolutely.
It was insane.
And it was just sheer determination and unrelenting desire to overcome. And both boys, whether they rematch again, I don't know. I mean, I think both boys conducting themselves were very articulate, were very eloquent, were very respectful, were very dignified. I thought both of them spoke really well about one another and about the circumstances. Fabio came straight out of the gate and said he deserves a rematch.
I think they go again, by the way. And I think that we probably see that at Ipswich Stadium or somewhere like that. And I really do. And it does
as the next fight.
As the next fight for both of them, because it was such a sensational fight. And you look at the landscape of the heavyweights at the moment and you go, where are they going, these two? Where, what is the journey? What is the direction for them? You go, well, they're not world class yet. Forget that. They put on an unbelievable spectacle there, but they're far from the finished article. They're not world class. And it makes sense. I think you could go pay-per-view with that. Ipswich, they could earn a hell of a lot of money and do it again. And it sort of makes sense. And I think that, they're beneath world level right now.
The problem is it's likely to be a very similar fight.
Well, listen, but they'll get well paid for it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I've got a good understanding of what they've got to pay for this fight, but ultimately, they can get themselves into a situation where they can get significantly more than that. But I just worry that the toll upon one another by this matchup could limit. They could get a big payday for this one, but for one of them, it could be, the last knockings of a career.
Listen, you get styles make fights, and you go like Riddick Bowe versus Evander Holyfield, the trilogy they had, and what that took out of both of them. It was just like, it is one of those where you go, stylistically, these two are always going to have a war. It's always going to be like that. It's always going to come down to
what I'm saying is the effect of that is there are other routes they could go and reconvene at a later stage and get a few more fights under their belt. Maybe someone gets a European title. Yeah. Maybe they start to get themselves into the rankings of world title shots and world title level fights. And that gets them just as much money as they can get from a domestic dust-up. Listen, we'll see.
We'll
see.
Yeah, I think it happens next. I think it happens at the stadium.
Is it me? Right? Or is Andy Clarke a tit? I mean, what was that discussion with Ben Whittaker? What was the purpose of that? You've got a star in the sport, and you as a boxing commentator want to sit on your moral high horse and lecture a charismatic fighter about the disrespect that apparently his opponents don't actually take from him.
Yeah.
It's entertainment. Sky is in the business of entertainment. They're actually sometimes style over substance. They're more entertainment than they are substance. Yeah. So we got one of their commentators lecturing Ben Whittaker about the disrespect that apparently he's giving to other fighters. What did you make of that?
Listen,
I like Ben's response.
I saw the interview, and I think Ben was right in his response, because we do live in a world. Listen, this is changing at the times. We live in a world of entertainment, and that is a fact. And what Ben Whittaker does in there, love it or hate it, I'm saying this kid is something really special. Sit back and enjoy it, because that's part of his game.
Want viewers.
Muhammad Ali done it, Nassim Hamid done it. Like, when you're talking about like charismatic fighters, the showboating and everything else, they go down as like legends.
But you want viewers. This is why Wurzel Gummidge or Scarecrow, or whatever he is, Jake Paul was getting so many people watching him, right?
Understood.
You want viewers. So why would the broadcaster...
What did you call it? What did you call it?
Wurzel Gummidge. Remember Wurzel Gummidge? The Crowman looks more like the Crowman, doesn't he? Sideshow Bob meets Wurzel Gummidge.
Oh, wow.
That's what Jake Paul is. Right?
Nice. Okay. I saw the comments.
It annoyed me. It just annoyed me. I thought, what's the purpose of this? We're in a business that you want to fill auditoriums. You want to build something up. Why would you knock something down? Yeah. And I thought Ben put him in his place.
Well, he was very vocal, Ben, wasn't he? And I think his response was okay.
Did you fall asleep in Vidal Riley?
Do you want the truth?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to lie? Yeah, he done what he had to do. He didn't get involved. He stayed away because Michael Holloway was one-dimensional but very heavy-handed, and he's done that. So I think, it was a bore fest. It's like you say, for the boxing purists, you go, but do you know what I wanted to see from Vidal? And I said it on the commentary on the night. I said, this is all great, that's lovely, but again, what we're talking about, we're living in a world of entertainment. He's got a huge social media following as well.
Put it on him.
Go, big YouTube following and whatnot. You go, at some point, you got to put it on him.
Put it on him.
Because that's what it is. People pay good money to, to sit in this arena and watch it. At some point, you've got to give them that value.
Absolutely.
And playing safe for the 10 rounds or 12 rounds is not for, it's not.
And it'll jeopardise your opportunity in the future.
It's a ball fest,
absolutely. I realise I've never laced up a glove and I shouldn't snore. So I'll take that.
But I understand what you're saying. Like, you go, I was there, I was frustrated because I go, I know Vidal can do that as well, because that's what he's all about. And I'm going, pull it on him then, mate. Like, at some point, you've got to sit there and roll the dice a little bit.
I tell you what we've got to give. We've got to give chapeau to Chris Congo. I'm not going to go through every single fight, but I just want to mention those three because I wanted to pull Andy Clarke up because I thought it was ridiculous. And I want to mention Chris Congo because I remember sitting in that studio with him and Floyd Marco. And Floyd Marco was laughing at him. Yeah. I was contemptuous of him. Yeah. Basically, you're lucky enough to have this fight with me, and you're even considering losing. And he did a number on him.
Was we? I do believe we was the only couple of people that sort of predicted that he would win that fight.
We were an echo chamber, confirmation bias going on here.
Yeah.
When you get it wrong, you're on your own. When you get it right, we're together. Right? That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Like when Lennox Lewis lost to Oliver McCall, he was Canadian as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
Right? When he won, British. Andy Murray.
Good old British heavyweight.
Andy Murray's UK when he wins Wimbledon, when he gets knocked out in the first round of India Wells, Scottish.
Yeah.
Right. That's how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, listen, I'm actually very pleased for him. And it also meant a hell of a lot to him as well.
Listen, it's about levels, about experience. Like, you know, he had a great team behind him as well. Ben Davison is a great student of the game. He's he works things out tactically, but ultimately it's about Chris Kongo and what he can deliver. And it was mad because it was always going to be a fight of two halves.
Yeah.
The fight I thought it was going to be was Kongo keeping it long at range, and then the second half of the fight, Marku getting close and wearing him down, and Kongo having to bite down, and whether he could weather that storm. Well, it turned out the other way, actually. It was actually Marku was close early on, and Kongo controlled the space late on in the fight. So it went the way I thought it would, but the opposite way. So it just showed his experience and his levels.
It was a good
great fight.
And it was
both guys. Great effort.
But it showed the technician that Kongo is. And obviously, he lost to Echo Usman.
Echo Esserman.
Esserman.
Yeah.
Right? And that was in Manchester because we were at that fight, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he did lose that fight. And I think it set him back.
But do you know what, though? He done himself proud that fight because, again, he showed so much character. He bit down and it was a war. And, he lost on a split decision. Esserman was the rightful winner. But you just go there and you look at Kongo and you go, you know what, this kid, was brilliant.
Well done to him. Because I also saw him in the studio kind of, he was playing second fiddle to Marku. So
he played it cool. He played it cool.
Yeah, well done to him. Well done to him. I touched upon it a moment ago about Eddie Hearn and Ben Shalom and the debate around the Azim Dalton's Smith fight, and obviously other conversations that have gone on between these two guys. What do you make to the observation? I mean, Eddie didn't just talk about Dalton Smith and Adam Azim.
Yeah.
He talked about a variety of fights.
Yeah, 5 fights that have fallen through.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you heard Ben's response to it with Jim White on Thursday.
I was on there with him,
You guys have been there, of course you would, yeah.
Shows how much you pay attention to what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it shows how much
Thanks for that,
exactly.
mate.
All I could see was a top of your head over the desk.
I've built this show up and got it to where it is, and you don't even listen to me on the show.
And I am grateful. My gratitude knows no bounds. What do you make to that sort of? I mean, look, people are going to say that I'm partisan to Ben, right?
And they're going to do it with me. Oh, well, he works for Boxer and all that sort of stuff. No, it's not about that. I spoke to Ben about this in length, actually, about pulling his fighters out and whatnot. What was the reasoning behind it? And it's exactly what he said to me. It's about duty of care and recognising the longevity of a fighter's career. And this is what I want to do. And like you said earlier, it's about we doing it on our terms and not on our terms. Like if the purse bids are called and we don't feel it's right, I'll pull him out.
Yeah.
So I understand it. I understand what it is. Yeah, it's frustrating for the boxing fans, and I'm one of those. I wanted to see Dalton Smith and Adam Azim. Of course I do, from selfish reasons. But when you look at it and break it down, you go, well, it probably is too soon for Azim. And what would a fight be like in 12 months? I mean, it's an interesting fight. So look, I understand it, and I understand it's frustrating for the boxing fans. But Shalom's doing it for his own reason.
But has he proven to be right, given the example of Fabio Wardley?
Absolutely.
Has that proved him to be right, or has it proved it just to be fortuitous that all the cards dropped the right way, the fight got built bigger, and they produced that performance?
Trust me on this one, that Frazer Clarke would never, ever, ever have got through that fight had he not gone in that 10-rounder with Marius Wack. Had they pulled him out, because the Marius Wack fight is when the fight would have happened. Frazer Clarke would have got knocked out in that fight had that happened then, because he wasn't prepared. He thought he was prepared, but with that 10-rounder made him recognise, hold on a minute, mate, I'm not even in shape here. How can I be doing this sort of like... So he went back to the drawing board, worked harder in the gym and come back, and that's what got him through that fight.
Have you spoken to either of the boys afterwards, Fabio or Frazer?
No. We spoke to him on Thursday. Frazer come on the show on Thursday, actually. Right. Yeah, I spoke to Frazer on the show on Thursday, and he was very disappointed about the result. As in, not that he didn't think it was a draw, but disappointed that, he didn't win the fight. Right. And so, which is nice to hear, really, because he wasn't happy with the draw. He said, I wanted that victory, and he'll go back, and he wants to do it again. They both do. So, yeah.
What do you think? What do you think? I mean, we've just touched upon Adam Azim, and he's now scheduled to fight. Chris Eubank Sr. has got his way. Yeah, he's got his son, his nephew. His nephew into the spotlight. Is this a good fight? Is this an interesting fight, or would you expect the outcome of it to be?
Do you know what? It is a good fight. Harlem Eubank is a good fighter. It's gone under the radar, and you know the story with Chris's brother, Harlem's dad, who was boxing when I was boxing, actually, he unfortunately passed away. And so Chris took it on to look after Harlem and you know, support him and do what he's done. And I think he's done a great job to get him in this position because he's a good fighter, Harlem Eubank.
Yeah,
and it's actually a good fight. It's a really good fight. And I like it. Chris Eubank will be a big part of the build-up. They'll sell the fight well, and you know we keep talking about it. Entertainment, and that's what sells.
Ben's talked about. I mean,
it's a decent fight.
Ben's talked about the nature of attaching Adam Azim, saying that basically, Adam Azim is a superstar in the making. Adam Azim has a social media recognition value which is significant. Dalton Smith doesn't have one. You stick Adam Azim in against a Eubank name, all of a sudden. Put aside the argument about whether he's ducked Dalton Smith at this moment in time, the credibility side of building up a backstory of Azim building up more recognisability. Well, if he beats a Eubank, is he right in that?
Listen, I totally understand. I understand the argument from Eddie Hearn and whatnot. Eddie Hearn's saying, listen, you got Dalton Smith's 27, Harlem Eubank's 30. So what are you talking about is too soon
he's
for him
had
and
6 more fights.
Yeah, absolutely. But but what I'm saying is, I think that I think it's the right move for Adam Azim, definitely, because the Eubank name will go a long way.
So then you must assume that the easier fight for him to have is Eubank.
Eubank's an easier fight for him to have than Dalton Smith right now, without a doubt. I'm not saying that it's an easy fight, because Eubank is a decent fighter. Right. But I think that Dalton Smith, at this stage of his career, is definitely a harder fight than a Harlem Eubank.
I agree. But what do you think is the likely outcome between Adam? We've seen a little bit of a plateauing, haven't we?
It's a good fight.
We've seen a little bit of a plateau in Adam Azim, where we felt that the last couple of performances brought out some questions that we didn't think would come out.
Yeah.
But what do you expect to happen in the Eubank fight? Because obviously this is Eubank's moment. He's been given an opportunity now. Adam Azim is in a space where Eubank would want to be himself. The Eubank name gets him an opportunity.
Yeah.
And of course his recent performances. But what do you think the outcome's going to be?
Do you know what? It's an interesting one because they've both sort of run this, like you say, like Adam Azim has sort of plateaued a little bit since he stepped up that level.
Yeah, because the hype was big, wasn't
absolutely,
it? And maybe it's good to let a little bit of the air out.
Taking a little bit of the air out, and you look at it and you go, Harlem Eubank's a decent fighter, and you go, I actually like this fight a lot.
Backstory. Who's going to win?
I was getting there.
Right.
I think Adam Azim should win. I'm not convinced on that, by the way.
Points.
I'm not convinced on that.
No.
No. On points, yeah. It's a tough fight. In you?
I just don't think they'd put him in against Harlem Eubank. And
I'm not interested in the story. Just give me who wins the fight.
Good point, well made. Adam Azim. Whilst it sort of irks me to keep giving him airtime, Eddie has been speaking about the Conor Benn situation, and he talked about it's predominantly UCAD that have got the judgment overturned, their appeals being successful.
Yeah.
My perception of it, and I think my perception is pretty near the absolute understanding of it, is that they have overturned the idea that jurisdiction wasn't theirs, and so they can re-implement potentially the suspension of Conor.
So the British Boxing Board of Control and UCAD have won the appeal. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Eddie's spoken about it and talked about it as being bound by confidentiality. Where does this leave Conor now? I mean, we've always said that he has to face the music and he has to present his case, not the technicality of a VADA test, not being in the jurisdiction of UCAD, but the technicality that he says he has, which is the ability to overcome
not finding a loophole in the system effectively and not proving your innocence. I think that leaves him now. Where does this leave him? Right back at the beginning, where he now has to prove his innocence, which he can't do. So he should just take the ban. And I think that it's a bit tiring, if I'm honest, because we seem to be going over and over and over it. And you go, we've heard a lot about scientists that have now got this scientific evidence that proves his innocence and like all these different reasons how he's proven his innocence, but we've never seen the evidence. You probably know more about this than I do in this situation, on where it is. And what are we waiting for now?
I think we're waiting.
Are we waiting for UCAD and the Boxing Board of Control to decide the punishment?
We must.
I mean, we're 2 years now, Simon.
We are, and we're certainly 18 months.
Yeah.
And we'll be 2 years relatively shortly. Obviously in 6 months' time, right? Obviously, And we look at strategies and we look at behaviour and we go down that route and we can say it because we've said it 100 times before. I'm not sure what confidentiality is bound in. Maybe there's some legal arguments that are going to be advanced. And it'll be interesting to see what the British Boxing Board of Control and UKAD determine they want to do. Because I would imagine they've got to re-implement the suspension. We've discussed it before, because what was the purpose of an appeal if you were just going to make a point?
So what are you saying, that the suspension then would start from as of today, as opposed to when it first was?
Well, the suspension was put in place in March of last year, wasn't it?
March of last year. Right. So what I'm saying
but that suspension is not a punishment, because the suspension is designed, I think, to bring him to a situation where he's accountable to the British Boxing Board of Control for the scenario. He's not been judged on it. Yeah. They're suspending him based upon the fact that he's not being put in front of them and presenting his arguments.
Well, why would he not do that?
Well,
I mean,
the logical answer to that question must be is because he can't find a way around strict liability. Because strict liability is simply, as we both know it, and we've rehearsed this speech now for a long period of time.
So he's basically trying to get off on a technicality as opposed to proving his innocence.
Well, he's not getting off on anything at the moment, is he?
No, because I'm saying, what is his defence?
When he got suspended by the British Boxing Board of Control, and sorry, more to the point, UKAD, then he got it overturned on the basis that his lawyers, I believe, felt that the VADA tests and the UKAD tests were had at the same time, and the passing of the UKAD tests and the failing of the VADA tests took it out of their jurisdiction, and all that went with the WBC and everything else that went with that, right? And so they suspended him. Then the suspension has now been lifted, was lifted as a result of the appeal in August that they put into place in front of the Sporting Resolutions Committee, and now it's been reinstated, or will be reinstated. So what that means for Conor is he either finds a situation where he can find a way around the licensing, which they've always maintained they could, and that he'll fight abroad, or he doesn't and he faces the board, he takes the consequences of strict liability, he produces the medical evidence that he has repeatedly said that he's got, which proves the fact that the metabolites produced in his system could only been gotten there as a result of food ingestion rather than PEDs. And hopefully that convinces the British Boxing Board of Control, and more importantly UKAD, that there is enough in that to say to him, right, we don't need to ban you because you pass a threshold, or the fact that you've been suspended and the fact that you haven't been able to fight on British shores is sufficient enough. Right. I don't know whether everyone will be satisfied with that. Yeah. I don't know whether people, if the British Boxing Board of Control pulled him in front of them and then said, right, well actually, put your case forward, it doesn't meet the threshold, you're getting banned, but we're taking into consideration the last 2 years. I don't know whether people would see that as satisfactory, because they might turn around and say, well actually, if you pissed around for 2 years, you didn't want to face anybody, so you don't get that as credit, then you're destroying a kid's career.
But if you was advising him though, wouldn't you have told him to present his case to the British Boxing Board of Control months ago, if he's got that sufficient evidence that he says he has? If you've got it, why would you not present it?
Because as we know, when the British Boxing Board of Control wanted to speak to him, he didn't have the evidence that he had when he came in March.
Well, he seems to have had it for a long time now.
Well, he's certainly had it since March, April, because his representative Rene came into the studios with Jim
March, April last year, you're talking about. Yeah.
Before the appeal. Right. Before the appeal or the resolution body sat down and listened to the jurisdiction argument. Yeah. And then he didn't need the medical argument because the jurisdiction argument trumped it. Sure. Right? The British Boxing Board of Control have now re-established the status quo and gone, now you do need an argument. Okay. Now you can't get around it with jurisdiction. You now can only get around it by presenting to us, or you're back in the same position you've been in for some time, which is you may well be able to fight and get licensed by other commissions.
But it's quite simple though. If you've got the evidence, you're just going to present it, aren't you?
Well, yes, but again, the evidence may only be satisfactory to get you a reduced ban. You may have evidence that produces the fact that ultimately this manifests itself in your system, but it may still be considered as bannable. Based upon what I've been told, I don't see how it could be, because if you really can prove anatomically and clinically that you've ingested this solely through food, and then you can prove the food source, which is the famous egg conversation, right? Then I'm not entirely sure that the law isn't an ass, because if you can prove it, then you've got to challenge the law and then ultimately you might find yourself not being banned. But the problem for him now is if he's not prepared to take that leap, if he's not prepared to do that, then he puts himself on the argument where he can't fight on these shores, and he can't fight against British licensed.
Yeah.
He can't be promoted by British licensed promoters.
And how long would that last? I mean, what are we talking?
Until he faces somebody, I'm not entirely sure what. I mean, that may well be the technical argument and the confidentiality that people are talking about, which is what is our strategy now.
Yeah.
If we're not,
what I'm talking about is this a situation where we could not see Conor Benn boxing on these shores again? I mean, is that what it's? Is that where we're at with it?
Well, someone. It's difficult to see how he does unless someone somewhere climbs down.
Yeah.
If the British Boxing Board of Control were to turn around to him and say now, right, present your case, we don't accept it, you've been found guilty, but we're taking into consideration the last 2 years, we're giving you a 2-year ban, you've had 2 years, in the ring you go.
Yeah.
Right, if they were prepared to say that, then you see him in the ring. If Conor Benn isn't prepared to face the British Boxing Board of Control and to present himself and be judged by them based upon the merits of his case, which currently all they know is 2 failed drugs tests, then I don't see how he does find a British ring again.
Interesting.
With all the best noise in the world and all the best advice or observations made by those that have got a vested interest in Conor Benn fighting, it will come down to that.
Interesting.
And my gut feel is that Conor Benn will have to face the British Boxing Board of Control, and it may be that time served, metaphorically, is taken into consideration.
Sure.
We'll see. Right, that's it for episode 68 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. We'll see you next time we're out.